Something just happened that no one in Washington or the media was prepared for. Donald Trump made a move so unexpected that it has left the political class scrambling and the press almost entirely silent. This isn't the kind of story that fades with a headline. It's the kind of moment that reveals cracks in the system itself. Why won't they talk about it? Why is the silence louder than the noise? Today we cut through the fog, uncover the real meaning of this decision, and ask what it tells us about America's future and those trying to shape it. Number one, Trump's unexpected move shakes the political landscape. Donald Trump has never been a man who follows the script written for him by the political establishment. This latest decision, the one so few anticipated, highlights his instinct to disrupt rather than conform. Political opponents had built their strategies around a predictable Trump. The rallies, the tweets, the sharp retorts. Yet when he shifted the terrain with an action that defied conventional wisdom, the very institutions that claimed to track him daily seemed unprepared. The silence that followed from major media outlets reveals less about the move itself and more about their discomfort with acknowledging the reality they did not foresee. What makes this moment striking is not only the surprise factor but also the cultural undertones it carries. Throughout American history, from Andrew Jackson to Ronald Reagan, moments have emerged when a figure outside the accepted elite reshaped politics by refusing to play by inherited rules. Trump's move fits within that lineage, reflecting a broader frustration with bureaucratic stagnation and elite insulation from public concerns. His willingness to act outside predictable channels echoes earlier populist currents, where leaders challenged entrenched hierarchies and forced institutions to confront uncomfortable truths. Silence, therefore, becomes the modern establishment's shield against admitting their own miscalculation. This opening shift sets the stage for broader implications. Trump has once again forced the national conversation into new territory, but the refusal to cover the moment honestly leaves ordinary Americans searching for context elsewhere. Political discourse cannot remain static when the ground beneath it has shifted. Whether one admires or resents him, Trump's capacity to surprise reveals both his political resilience and the fragility of those who claim to arbitrate public knowledge. The silence surrounding this move may be temporary, but its significance is already echoing. Number two, why the establishment never saw it coming. The political establishment, from career politicians to entrenched media figures, has long operated under the assumption that Trump's behavior is predictable. They brand him as impulsive, loud, and reactionary, yet this caricature blinds them to the deeper instincts that guide his decisions. When he steps outside their preconceived notions, they are caught flat-footed. This latest move was no exception. It revealed that the very people who pride themselves on forecasting political outcomes are unable to comprehend the methods of a leader who thrives on breaking molds rather than following them. The failure is not just analytical but cultural. Washington insiders live within echo chambers where consensus is mistaken for truth. They consult the same pollsters, rely on the same talking points, and appear on the same panels, reinforcing one another's illusion. History offers many examples of elites who underestimate outsiders. The Roman Senate dismissing Julius Caesar, or Britain's ruling class scoffing at Churchill before the war. In each case, the refusal to see beyond one's own assumptions proved costly. Trump has tapped into a similar dynamic where his unpredictability unsettles those who mistake uniformity for wisdom. This blindness also exposes a deeper fragility in the establishment's hold on power. Their strategies are built on narratives that assume control of information and interpretation. When an unexpected move pierces that narrative, it leaves them exposed, scrambling to explain what they failed to anticipate. Trump understands this vulnerability and exploits it by staying one step ahead, often moving in directions they did not consider possible. The establishment's shock is therefore less about the action itself and more about the reminder that their grip on the American political imagination is weaker than they dare admit. Number three, the silence of the media, a story in itself. When Trump acted in a way no one predicted, the silence from major media outlets became almost deafening. This silence is not the product of ignorance but of deliberate choice. For years, legacy networks and print giants have operated on the belief that what they ignore, the public will eventually forget. By withholding coverage, they attempt to control not only the news cycle but also the boundaries of acceptable conversation. Their refusal to address Trump's move speaks volumes about their strategy. It is easier to pretend nothing happened than to confront a reality that undermines their carefully cultivated narratives. Silence, however, is not neutral. It is a form of commentary in itself, a signal that the truth is too disruptive to acknowledge openly. Throughout history, regimes and institutions have relied on selective omission as a tool of influence, whether by downplaying military defeats or ignoring economic crises. Today's media follows a similar pattern, shielding its audience from developments that challenge ideological comfort zones. In this case, the refusal to cover Trump's action reveals not objectivity but bias, as the press seeks to maintain a storyline where he is perpetually reckless and incapable of strategic thought. His move unsettles that caricature, and silence becomes their only defense. Yet the public is not as passive as these institutions assume. In the digital age, information seeps through alternative outlets, podcasts, and citizen journalism. Americans notice when a story is missing, and that absence becomes more telling than the coverage itself. The media's attempt to suppress only fuels suspicion and curiosity, driving audiences toward voices willing to confront uncomfortable truths. Trump benefits from this dynamic, as silence creates mystique and magnifies intrigue. What the media refuses to say loudly often echoes more powerfully in the nation's political conscience. Number 4. Trump's strategy versus Biden's stagnation. Politics often thrives on contrasts, and nowhere is this clearer than in the gulf between Donald Trump's unexpected maneuver and Joe Biden's hesitant leadership style. Trump thrives on disruption, reshaping the debate by forcing his rivals to react to him rather than set their own agenda. His latest action reflects a willingness to challenge convention, to move swiftly where others hesitate. Biden, by contrast, appears weighed down by caution, leaning heavily on committees, advisors, and well-rehearsed talking points. The result is a stark divide between a leader who seizes the moment and another who seems perpetually trapped in process. This divide reflects more than personality differences. It signals two fundamentally different approaches to governance. Trump embraces a philosophy of action first, narrative later, which unsettles his opponents precisely because it undermines their reliance on procedure. Biden, meanwhile, embodies institutional inertia, where stability is prized even at the cost of decisiveness. American history often rewards boldness in moments of crisis, from Lincoln suspending convention during the Civil War to Reagan redefining the Cold War through rhetoric and military buildup. Trump channels that tradition, while Biden mirrors leaders who prefer maintaining appearances over reshaping outcomes. For ordinary Americans, the contrast is increasingly visible. They see one figure defying expectations and commanding headlines even in silence, while another struggles to generate enthusiasm or convey urgency. Trump's ability to dictate the terms of debate leaves Biden reacting defensively, offering explanations rather than vision. In politics, energy often matters more than polish, and this latest move has highlighted where the energy truly lies. Trump's willingness to keep adversaries guessing only magnifies Biden's struggles, casting the White House not as the seat of bold leadership, but as a caretaker office mired in hesitation. Number 5. Lessons from history. When outsiders rewrite the rules. Throughout history, moments arise when figures dismissed as outsiders transform the course of politics by refusing to obey the rules of the establishment. Pericles expanded Athenian democracy against the wishes of aristocratic elites. Julius Caesar defied the Roman Senate, reshaping the republic into an empire. In the American context, Andrew Jackson and later Ronald Reagan were viewed skeptically by insiders, yet both shifted the nation's political trajectory. Trump's unexpected move fits squarely into this tradition, a reminder that disruption often precedes renewal. Outsiders succeed because they exploit the blind spots of those invested in preserving the status quo. What links these figures is not similarity in policy, but a shared willingness to expose the weaknesses of entrenched systems. The elites of every era believed their authority unshakable, until it was challenged by someone who operated on different assumptions. Trump, like them, understands the value of surprise and the danger of predictability. His recent action demonstrates how quickly the narrative can be overturned when a leader refuses to play by rules designed to contain him. Historical memory suggests that established establishments often crumble not through direct assault, but by their inability to adapt when unconventional actors seize the initiative. For modern America, this is more than an academic lesson. It is a warning to those who assume political power is secured by institutional weight alone. The strength of an outsider rests in his ability to resonate with the frustrations of ordinary citizens who grow weary of stagnant governance and unresponsive elite. Trump's move has reminded the nation that disruption is not chaos. It can be strategy. History teaches us that those who underestimate the outsider often end up recording his triumph, in hindsight, long after their own authority has slipped away. Number 6, the populist undercurrent. Why ordinary Americans respond. Trump's capacity to surprise resonates deeply with ordinary Americans because it aligns with their frustration at being ignored by political elites. When he acts in ways that break conventional expectations, many see it as symbolic of their own desire to challenge systems that appear closed off and unaccountable. Populism thrives not on carefully polished speeches but on a sense of authenticity, a belief that someone is willing to defy the machinery of bureaucracy. This latest move tapped into that energy, reinforcing the perception that Trump is not merely a participant in politics but a challenger to its entrenched order. Populist movements have always gained strength when ordinary citizens feel disconnected from those who claim to govern on their behalf. From the agrarian revolts of the 19th century to the Tea Party wave of the early 21st, the pattern is consistent. Frustration breeds momentum for figures who refuse to conform. Trump embodies this cycle, positioning himself as a voice against the insiders who dismiss public concerns as inconvenient or unsophisticated. His actions remind voters that political change can emerge not from committee rooms but from individuals willing to defy elite consensus. This connection also explains why silence from the media only heightens his appeal. When outlets downplay or ignore his unexpected choices, supporters interpret the omission as confirmation that he challenges structures designed to suppress their voices too. The more elites attempt to dismiss him, the stronger the populist current grows because resistance feeds the sense of authenticity. For many Americans, Trump's unpredictability feels less like recklessness and more like liberation from a stagnant political culture. His latest action, therefore, is not simply a tactical maneuver, it is part of a larger populist rhythm that continues to reshape the American political landscape. Number 7, global reverberations, what the world thinks. America's political shocks rarely remain confined within its borders, and Trump's latest move is no exception. Even as domestic media tries to downplay or ignore the development, foreign governments and analysts are recalculating. In Europe, leaders already uneasy about the stability of American commitments watch closely, knowing Trump's actions could redefine transatlantic relations. In Asia, particularly in Beijing, the unexpected nature of his decision prompts new considerations about American resolve and unpredictability. Silence at home contrasts sharply with whispers abroad, where policymakers cannot afford to dismiss a figure who has repeatedly reshaped the global stage. The international reaction underscores a central truth. Unpredictability is power. Trump's willingness to disrupt assumptions unsettles not only domestic opponents but also global rivals. For allies accustomed to predictable American leadership, this creates both anxiety and opportunity. They must weigh whether to adapt quickly to shifting priorities or risk being sidelined. Rivals, meanwhile, recognize that a leader capable of acting outside established norms forces them into a state of constant recalibration. This was true during his presidency when NATO members were pressed to contribute more, and adversaries hesitated to test boundaries they once considered fixed. What is striking is the contrast between foreign attentiveness and domestic silence. While American media avoids discussion, foreign ministries draft memos, convene meetings, and prepare for contingencies. This gap reveals the insularity of America's press compared to the global realities of power politics. For the world, Trump's move is not a trivial moment to be ignored, but a signal of shifting dynamics that could alter trade, security, and diplomacy. America's allies and adversaries alike recognize that silence is a luxury they cannot afford, and their attention testifies to the weight of the moment. Number 8, the intellectual class and their fear of disruption. Universities, think tanks, and media commentators pride themselves on shaping political discourse, yet they are consistently unsettled by Trump's unpredictability. His latest move exposes their vulnerability because it refuses to follow the frameworks they have built entire careers upon. These elites thrive on stability. Panels, conferences, and policy papers assume a world where politics can be charted like a textbook. When a leader breaks those assumptions, the intellectual class is left grasping for explanations. Their silence is less ignorance than unease, a recognition that their tools of analysis fail when faced with disruption. The history of political thought is filled with similar moments, when scholars and experts resisted ideas that challenged their models. From the Enlightenment thinkers dismissed as radicals to economists who underestimated the Great Depression, intellectual establishments often lag behind reality. Trump's decision highlights this same lag as experts who scoffed at him for years now confront actions they cannot easily categorize. Their discomfort stems from the fact that unpredictability undermines authority, for expertise is only valuable if it can forecast events. When they fail, their influence diminishes, and the silence that follows is a shield against embarrassment. This fear is compounded by their cultural detachment from ordinary citizens. Intellectual elites often dismiss populist instincts as crude or dangerous, yet it is precisely those instincts that give Trump his resilience. By ignoring or downplaying his move, they hope to preserve credibility within their insulated circles, but at the cost of further alienating the public. Their refusal to engage does not weaken Trump, it weakens them. The very disruption they fear most is also the force exposing their irrelevance. Silence in this case is not wisdom but a quiet admission of defeat. Number 9. What comes next? The ripple effect of one decision. Trump's unexpected move is not an isolated act, but the beginning of a chain reaction. In politics, bold gestures rarely fade quietly. They alter the calculations of opponents, energize supporters, and force institutions to adapt. Already, strategists on both sides of the aisle are weighing how this action reshapes the approaching electoral landscape. For Democrats, the challenge lies in countering a figure who consistently shifts the ground beneath their feet. For Republicans, the moment becomes a rallying point, reinforcing Trump's dominance within a party still divided over its future. The ripples extend outward, touching every corner of the political map. What makes this ripple effect especially potent is the timing. America faces economic uncertainty, cultural division, and global instability. In such a climate, unexpected moves do not merely draw attention, they define leadership. Trump's ability to set the narrative ensures that his opponents are trapped in a reactive stance. Each silence from the media only sharpens curiosity, and each attempt to downplay him reinforces his image as a disruptive force. The public, sensing both unease and intrigue, becomes more invested in what he will do next. Momentum builds not from official coverage but from the energy of unpredictability. The longer-term consequences remain uncertain, yet one truth stands clear: silence cannot contain a political earthquake. Institutions may attempt to muffle the story, but the effects will surface in campaign rhetoric, voter enthusiasm, and international perception. Trump has demonstrated once again that control of the narrative does not belong to those with the loudest platforms, but to those with the boldest actions. The ripple effect of this decision ensures that the coming months will not settle quietly, but will carry the tremors of a system forced to confront its own fragility. Number 10, a moment of reckoning for America. Trump's latest move is more than a headline. It is a mirror held up to the American system. It reveals the limits of media control, the fragility of political elites, and the deep hunger among ordinary citizens for leadership that refuses to follow scripted paths. Silence may attempt to bury the moment, but history records action, not omission. This act will be remembered not for how news anchors described it, but for how it disrupted the assumptions of those who believed the political order unshakable. A reckoning is not on the horizon, it is already unfolding. The silence itself speaks volumes. By choosing not to engage, the press and establishment admit indirectly that they lack answers. Their refusal to acknowledge what has happened betrays both fear and weakness. Americans, however, sense the gap. They recognize when leaders and institutions are hiding behind omission, and such awareness only accelerates the decline of trust. Trump, deliberately or instinctively, has once again positioned himself as the outsider, exposing the cracks in the facade. The act may have surprised his critics, but the reaction of silence will surprise no one who has watched the decline of elite credibility. What comes next depends not solely on Trump, but on how America chooses to respond. Will the nation continue to cling to narratives curated by those who fear disruption, or will it recognize that unpredictability is a feature of politics, not a flaw? The answer will shape elections, policies, and perhaps the very direction of the republic. This moment is less about one man than about the health of a system that cannot forever ignore reality. Silence cannot erase significance, and America now stands at a threshold where choices will echo for generations. Trump's latest move is more than another twist in American politics. It is a revelation of how fragile the current order truly is. The silence from the media is not an oversight, it is a strategy, one designed to protect a narrative that cannot withstand disruption. Yet silence has limits. Americans notice when stories are buried, and that awareness only fuels the hunger for unfiltered truth. What makes this moment so striking is not just what Trump did, but how institutions reacted with avoidance, hesitation, and fear. That silence speaks louder than any editorial ever could. This is a moment of reckoning, not just for Trump's opponents, but for the republic itself. Will the nation continue to accept curated narratives, or will it demand honest engagement with the realities shaping our future? History suggests that disruption cannot be contained forever. Trump has once again reminded the political class that the rules they write for themselves can be broken, and that the people still have the power to decide who leads them. If you found this analysis valuable, don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more deep dives into America's political landscape, and share your thoughts in the comments below.